And welcome back to the show. Once again, I'm your host Sully, and as always, I got some talent who's made it, made a killing in their respective industry, and we get to pick their brain as well as just explore what keeps them going and how that can inspire you, the listener. So, welcome, David Matthew Barnes, author, playwright, poet, and screenwriter.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Very happy to be here.
Absolutely, and once again, you've even done some movie reviews on Filton Cell,
Yes.
the web series. So you've been just getting your feet wet with just so many different uh, aspects of entertainment, and obviously nothing like this happens overnight. So when did you decide that you had a knack for writing?
Oh, it's a great question. Yeah, it's all those things that you mentioned too, they make for an interesting day, and it's all about having a very fulfilling day, right?
A
I
fulfillment, yeah.
I I owe the writing stuff, my writing career to teachers. I had a wonderful second grade teacher who saw writing potential in me and had asked us to write a short story for Halloween, and I turned in like this 5-page epic at the age of 7. And she kept me after class, and I thought I was in trouble, but to tell me that she thought I would be a great writer. So she called my mom and told my mom this. And a few years later, my mom got me a secondhand typewriter. That's how old I am. And I didn't know how to type, honestly, but I taught myself, much to the horror of my family. And yeah, and then I published my first short story when I was 15, and then it just kind of went from there, and never looked back. And it's just been such an incredible, fun ride, experience, journey, all of it. Wouldn't trade it for anything.
It has. And what were your inspirations growing up? Like, what were you reading, watching,
Mm.
listening to that made you just kind of, ended up just finding, wow, I reference them more than I realized. They're so united with me.
Yeah, no. So I was a very devout reader. Like I would read everything I could get my hands on, which probably most writers would say, but like the back of the cereal box was somehow engaging to me, and TV Guide, and just, strange things that I just couldn't get enough of language. I read a lot of Judy Blume. I read a lot of Christopher Pike and Lois Duncan and
No
Norma
relation to the
Fox
Star Trek
Major.
character.
Right. Yeah. And so just loved, I couldn't read enough books, and librarians were really good to me when I was growing up. And they knew, like, when I would walk in the library, to recommend certain books to me and so forth. So teachers and librarians really shaped who I am today. And then movies came into the mix too. I saw uh The Lady from Shanghai. It's a film noir from the 1940s
Yeah,
with
Orson
Rita
Welles.
Hayworth. Do
Yeah.
you know that movie?
Yeah, I've seen it twice.
Yeah. And so I saw it when I was like, I want to say 12, and I just immediately fell in love with movies and film noir and so forth. And then that just parlayed into like studying film and writing about film and critiquing film, and just I get to write novels for young people and watch movies and talk about movies, and it's just an awesome way to spend your day.
Nice. So you were already kind of in Turner Classic Movies mode before that was a thing. Just-
Right. Yeah. Well, one of my early jobs, which sounds crazy now because they're gone, but I worked at a Blockbuster Video, and it was a
what year?
godsend. Sorry, say that again.
I don't know, what era?
This was in mid to late 90s. So toward right in the sort of the middle of the peak of Blockbuster, when everybody was going to Blockbuster on a Friday night to pick out a movie and get some microwave popcorn. But it was an amazing experience because I had access to so many movies just by working there, that it really kind of it became like my college of sorts, of just being able to watch so many movies and learn about films and see great things like The Godfather and things that I had not seen before that had just been monumental in the world of cinema. So it was a really great experience for sure.
Very nice. So there was all kinds of screenwriters back then. William Goldman, Billy
Mhm.
Wilder. Did you ever watch the end of the credits and remember someone else besides the stars and the director?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, like the people that you just mentioned were huge. I mean, Sunset Boulevard was a tremendous, huge influence on me. But
So ripped
um,
off.
Right?
So ripped off. It's the same thing as Usual Suspects. Everyone, on
Yeah.
rare occasions, you'll see someone shit on it. I'm like, well, yeah, because you've seen everyone else do it poorly. Same thing with Seven. Well, it was good at the time, but I mean, you're seeing all these copycats, so of course it doesn't mean anything to you anymore because the well's been poisoned.
Yeah, yeah, you make such a great point. I feel like the copycats always get a bigger budget, so we know them more than the original. A
Do you
lot of
remember
times it
Star
happens in
Wars or the shitty knockoffs?
right. Like I don't know if you look at Japanese horror very much, but the original Japanese horror
Here and there.
movies are so much better than the American remakes, mostly, usually. But
Oh,
the American
even
remakes have
Swedish and
the
British
money.
horror are pretty good. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's like there's even Hong Kong movies that I think do a way better job of say comedy and crime, and everyone else instead is like, I ain't heard of it unless it's Scorsese.
Yeah, it's very, very true. And I share that sentiment a lot with you. So on the same page for sure.
Very much. Altogether, what gets you up in the morning? What makes you just say, I want to do one hell of a job time? Just I'm gonna write today. I'm gonna listen to a cool podcast or a music band that just inspiring. What's your day-to-day routine in between writing?
I'm discipline is probably one of my hardest things as a writer. I have to write 3 books a year, so I got to be somewhat disciplined. But I'm not a morning person by nature, but I have to get the writing done the first thing in the morning. Otherwise, I'll find a gazillion reasons to not do the writing. So I have like a really clean kitchen and a spotless house, but I wouldn't have written a word. And so I get up, I have some coffee. I like the morning time. I don't know if you're a morning person, but I like the morning time because it's like the beginning of the day, like nothing's started yet. And I get the writing out of the way and it's not always good words. It's just me getting words down on paper and then I'll go back and shape it later. But that's kind of the driving force for me. But I'm also really excited by what the day holds for me, I guess, if that makes sense. Like each day
Your
is
ambition.
so
You're looking forward to it.
Say that again.
You're looking forward to it as opposed
Absolutely.
to just what do I do?
Yeah, no, I'm there in the
Live.
present for sure. Yeah, no, it's exciting. I don't know I don't know if you feel the same way, but just getting up and like,
Don't let the day run you. Yeah.
Right. What is the day gonna hold?
Oh, totally. There's 0 point in just kind of just. I think, unfortunately, I don't know if it's millennials ruining it for everybody or what, but it just seems like there's just so many who will just do nothing all day and then be so pissed that they did nothing with their day-to-day routine. And it's like, well, you've had all day.
Right. I envy those people. But
It's just annoying because you don't know if they're improving or if they want you to feel sorry. I'm like, no, I'm not feeling sorry for you being a dipshit.
right. Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely know people who can be very comfortable not doing very much. But I've never been one of those people. I think I've always just been sort of that hit the ground running kind of person and just I mean, I experience life so differently, I think, than a lot of people. I think all artists and creative people do because we look at the world so differently. We experience things so differently because we're going to repaint it or retell it or film it, And so I feel like just like our stimuli is so different. The way like our senses, I feel like, are on hyperdrive a lot because I don't know. I feel so keenly aware of stuff just around me, like just crazy things like colors and textures and light and shadow and things that I might have to like tell some point, either for a film that I'm writing or a stage play or novel, and just sort of storing that all away, the observation of it all. But yeah, all good stuff.
Very nice. Yeah. Well, what were some other authors you read quite a lot of and you felt just very influenced to kind of follow their lead?
On the theater side, I read a lot of Tennessee Williams, who wrote A Streetcar Named Desire and among many other great plays. But I also I really loved the work of Lorraine Hansberry, sadly, who wrote A Raisin in the Sun. And sadly, she died very young, so we didn't get a lot of plays from her, but the ones that we did were really incredible. So Yeah, and I do read some contemporary authors as well. So I've never talked about this on a podcast before, but you know who I really enjoy reading? I've never said this. Danielle Steele. I don't know if you know Dan, who's a romance writer who
Hmm.
writes about 20 books a year.
Correct.
They're very easy books to read. They're just, fun entertainment and great storytelling and so forth. But that's sort of my guilty pleasure as a reader, is reading a good Danielle Steele book. So I'm not ashamed to admit that I read Danielle Steele because she's a good person. But anytime you mention genre fiction of reading it, there's always sort of this stigma that goes along with it. You either love Stephen King or you don't, kind of thing. So
Totally. I mean, we're finding that authors are no different than they are artists. They can do entertainment or guilty pleasures or just other silly stuff, and it's fun to kind of, in fact, kind of like a music artist is like, was this their best, work? Was this their best album?
yeah, that's very, very true. I'm very influenced by music a lot too. I think music, love lyrics, really good, introspective, clever lyrics. So music is definitely something that's a big part of my life. I'm not a musician myself. I can't sing or play an instrument, but I do have a deep appreciation for music and all that it can do. Music's so imagistic. It can just make you see really great scenes and imagination and so forth.
Totally. Altogether, what would you say that it's been much easier to now produce books, especially since anyone can just put their book on a website to read or download?
Sort of. I mean, I published traditionally with a wonderful publishing company called KL Publishing. They're a female-owned publishing company in LA, but I do have my own small press too, and so I do put out some of my own stuff, sort of the self-publishing independent mode. I do think that it's given a lot of authors opportunity that might not otherwise get published to put their own work out there. But I work, even when I do the self-publishing, I still work with a really wonderful editor, have a professional cover designer. I think all of that, the quality checks, I think, are really critical, especially if you don't have like a traditional publisher sort of looking over your shoulder or doing those things for you. And there's pros and cons on both sides. I mean, I've definitely experienced having been published for 20 years now with novels, I've experienced both, and I can definitely say that there's, pros and cons on both sides. And there's things I love about both sides. There's things that are, tough on both sides. It just depends on it. But I just like having the option, quite honestly. I think a lot of writers do, is that, back before we had sort of the ebook Kindle kind of explosion, where you had that choice as an author to publish your own work, you were so reliant on, having to get past the gatekeepers, in that case, an literary agent or
You can't do
editor from
that.
a publisher, that a lot of work, really great work, went unpublished because they just, the selection process is so subjective. You just have to hope that somebody likes your work and that they get you through that door. But now I think it's, in the era of entrepreneurialism that we live in, I think it's a really, you can make a substantial living being a self-published author. It's a lot of work. I mean, because all that marketing and so forth falls on your shoulders, but a lot of my friends do it and they're very successful at it and they love it and wouldn't trade it for anything. But it's not for everybody. It's certainly not for everybody. I don't think writing is for everybody. It can be a tough industry on a good day.
Oh, for sure. So what are some other ways that you recommend people just like get started? Like they just know they want to start and they got to see if it actually works for them.
That's a really great question.
Because, it seems like there's many contests, but they're not always easy to get into, or might not be your kind of writing.
Yeah, I feel like there's a couple different ways to answer that. I feel like, to thine own self be true, it just kind of popped into my head. But I think you're going to know your writing and your story, the story that you want to tell better than anyone, and just to stick to that. that entry point that you were talking about, getting in through contests and so forth, it really depends on the path you want to travel as a writer. If you want to be published by a large publishing house, that's a great, contests and so forth are a great way to get the attention of a publisher. But I feel like going to like literary conferences and literary festivals and just connecting with people and meeting literary agents and meeting publishers and editors, people who are looking for your type of work, can be really, really helpful. And just it's a seemingly small industry. I mean, in publishing, most people know of each other, or somebody who knows somebody kind of thing. And so that's a really great way to go. But if you're starting out and you don't want to go that traditional route, or maybe that kind of, is intimidating or so forth, and you just want to tell a good story and get it out there, my first recommendation, I'm gonna preface this with the fact that I was an English teacher for 15 years of my life, which is to study your craft, just to know, take a class, take a few classes, get a degree in it, know the mechanics of writing, because the business stuff and the career side of it, there's people there that will help you in terms of agents and managers and so forth. But the writing itself, just being able to tell a great story on paper and doing it well with mastery, is what's going to set you apart. And whether it's you're self-publishing or whether you're publishing traditionally, it's all about what's on the page. It's all about the reader's experience of reading your work, and will they come back for more? And so I feel like that's where your focus really needs to be, is to get your craft where it's its strongest place before sort of venturing out into the crazy wild world of writing. That's my advice. But the other, my most practical, like off the cuff advice, is to write without fear. I think so often people who are new to writing really censor themselves. They're worried about what other people are going to think about their writing, their parents, their loved ones, so forth. Their fear of rejection. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do, is to write a story and put it out there to be read or criticized in some fashion, but really try to get past that, because telling a story is such an incredible thing to be able to do. And I truly believe, this sounds like such a corny cliche, but I swear by it, that everybody's got a story in them that only they can tell. And I think it's tapping into that story that is a culmination of whatever experiences you've had, can really bring your truth out onto the page. And that's what people are going to respond to, I think, and really connect with, is authentic, fearless writing.
There we go. We love fearlessness.
Right? Yeah, I know. There's a lot to be said for fearlessness. It's not easy, but.
Okay. So any other advice or promos or other stuff you want to discuss real fast?
Yeah, I just, if anybody likes a good Christmas holiday romance, I have a holiday romance book called The Everlasting Gift, which came out last year. But if that is your thing, I invite you to read it. It's
sounds
uplifting, heartwarming story. Okay. It's about faith and community and family and all kinds of good stuff. And if you like stuff on the more wild side, I have a young adult book, which was a best-selling novel for me, called Marijuana Mermaid. It's a young adult book. It's about female teen rebellion. And it was really a lot of fun to write. And the responses to it, especially from young women, it's been a lot of fun. So those are the two things I would definitely want to, if anyone's interested in checking out my work, both of those books are out and available.
By all means. Okay, very, very badass. Any other closing thoughts? It's such a crazy world that we're living in, and I'm going to sound corny again at the risk of it, but just keep being good to each other, because we really need that in this crazy wild world. Is support artists, support each other, be good to each other and to yourself. Prompt and to the point.
We'll return after these messages.
Do you ever find yourself thinking about who would win in a fight between Goku and Superman? Hi, I'm James Gavsey, and on the Who Would Win show, me and my co-host Ray ignore anything important happening in the outside world and debate fictional battles between characters from comics, movies, and video games.
We got a new show every week, and almost always am I the winner.
Yeah, not true, Ray.
In the past, we've discussed such matches as Captain America versus Darth Vader, Solid Snake versus the Iron Giant, classic matchups like RoboCop versus Terminator, and even the Muppets versus Sesame Street.
That one was crazy. So if you're a fan of geek culture and love a spirited debate, check out the Who Would Win Show wherever you get your podcasts, or check us out at whowouldwinshow.com.
We let things pile up in the DVR, we add them to our queues, we wait for the DVDs and Blu-rays. We time shift. The Time Shifters Podcast. Sci-fi, horror, fantasy, superheroes, comedy, action, film, television, maybe some not-so-current events. Find us on iTunes or at timeshifterspodcast.com.
Cool thing about Blind Knowledge is we are in multiple countries. We are worldwide all across the globe. We are in the US, we are in the UK, we are in Canada, Germany, India, Japan. We're in Australia, y'all. BlindKnowledge.com. Now back to the feature presentation.
Dragon Ball Z, One Piece, Naruto, all things that we love, all manga that were originally published in the legendary magazine Weekly Shonen Jump.
But not every series can run for 300 chapters and have a hit anime. This is David.
This is Jordan.
We're the hosts of Shonen Flop. Each episode we look at manga that ran in Jump that didn't quite make it.
We discuss what it did wrong, what it did right, how the series could have turned itself around, and ultimately, was it a flop or not?
We're on all your favorite podcast apps, and you can find us at shonenflop.com.
Keep on flopping, floppers.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening. It's a jacked up